Hey everybody, so today I want to do a kind of pointless but very fun video for you guys. What would the playoff matchups be in the NHL if the season ended today? Now obviously we're only approaching the halfway point of the season. There's still a lot of hockey in the regular season left to be played. A lot can change, but I absolutely love the playoff hockey. There is nothing else in the world like it. It is the greatest anything in all of sports. And I know it seems like I'm wishing the regular season away, but I cannot wait for the postseason again this year. April, May into June, just such an incredible time of year, such an awesome spectacle to watch. All these teams go at it night in and night out for the Stanley Cup. So I want to have some fun today and look at if the season were to end right now. If the NHL just said, yep, that's it, season's over, playoffs start tomorrow, what would the playoff matchups be in the Eastern and the Western conferences? So before we start, I just want to remind everyone to please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And like the video, those thumbs up really do go a long way. Both of those things would be greatly, greatly appreciated. So here we go. If the season ended right now, here would your playoff matchups be. And I'm going to start in the Western Conference, where the 1 seed right now out west is the St. Louis Blues, defending Stanley Cup champions, and they would play the Edmonton Oilers, who are the second wild card team out west right now. The 2-3 matchup from the Central Division would be the Colorado Avalanche versus the Winnipeg Jets. Arizona currently leads the Pacific Division. They would play the first wild card team in the Dallas Stars. And the 2-3 matchup from the Pacific would be Vegas versus Calgary. Those are some pretty cool matchups. Particularly Colorado versus Winnipeg would be absolutely incredible. I would want to watch every second I could of that series. That one would be a whole lot of fun. I think St. Louis would probably wipe the floor with Edmonton. That series would probably be over in 5 games. Arizona versus Dallas is an interesting one. Honestly, I kind of would like to see Dallas and Edmonton switch. I think in a perfect world, Dallas would play St. Louis. That would be a hell of a matchup and a lot of fun to watch. And Edmonton would play Arizona, keeping things within the division. And I think those would be a little bit more interesting matchups. And then Vegas versus Calgary, that would be low-key a really, really good series, I think. Both of those teams have a lot of talent. Obviously, I would give Vegas the edge just because they have Marc-Andre Fleury in goal compared to David Rittich. So they certainly have the edge in the goaltending category, and I think that would give Vegas the edge in the series. But that would be, I think, a lot of fun to watch, and that series would probably get pretty nasty between those two teams. But overall, if things were to end right now, I think the matchups would be pretty decent out west. Not the best. I do like the Eastern Conference matchups better, and we'll get to that when I talk about the East. But Colorado versus Winnipeg, I think, would be one hell of a playoff series. And I think Vegas versus Calgary would be a lot of fun to watch as well. Now, moving on to the East, I absolutely love these matchups in the Eastern Conference. If nothing changed the rest of the season, if this is the Eastern Conference come April, I will be more than okay and happy with that. Washington right now is the 1 seed, would be playing Carolina, who is the second wild card. That would be a rematch of last year's first round, where Carolina upset Washington to went on to the Eastern Conference final. A rematch between those two teams. The series went 7 games last year. Would be absolutely incredible. I hope it happens. Honestly, I really, really hope it happens. Washington versus Carolina again this year would be A+ hockey to watch. And I would be watching, all of those games if I could. The 2-3 matchup in the Metro right now would be the New York Islanders versus the Pittsburgh Penguins, which ironically was the 2-3 matchup last year in the playoffs. We'd have another repeat in the Eastern Conference, which again, I am more than okay with. That's how rivalries build. That's how series get nasty. That's how teams start to hate each other. They have to play each other over and over again in the playoffs a couple of times, and next thing you know, you have a grade A rivalry on your hands. Islanders and Penguins meeting up again, which honestly, think is probably going to happen. I really do think that even though we're only about the halfway point of the season, I really do think that the Islanders and the Penguins end up the second and third teams in the Metro and will meet in the playoffs again this year. That's going to be as good as it gets in the postseason. The one seed from the Atlantic Division versus the top wild card team right now would be Boston versus Philadelphia. Bruins and Flyers, it's always awesome when those two teams meet up, and, they've met in the playoffs before and had some really, really good series, had some really fun series to watch. So I would be a big fan of Boston meeting up with Philly. And then the 2-3 matchup from the Atlantic would be Toronto versus Montreal right now. Think of how that would go in Canada. Talk about massive ratings. Talk about a series that would be off the charts as far as Canada goes. Maple Leafs, Canadiens, first round of the playoffs. That would be absolutely nuts. I think it'd be a hell of a series, too. You'd have Toronto with their high-flying offense and all their goal scoring versus Montreal, who's a much more defensive-minded team, more focused on not giving up goals than scoring a ton. A huge contrast in styles. I think that would be an incredibly fun series to watch. And between two massive rivals, and two Canadian rivals as well, I think that would be just absolutely incredible. So, I mean, the West is decent. The East right now, if this was the East come playoff time, I would be more than happy. These are incredibly good matchups right now. Again, the Metro would be a repeat of last year's first round, Washington, Carolina, New York versus Pittsburgh. I am more than okay with that. Those series are going to be absolutely off the charts if they were to play. And then Boston versus Philly is Bruins Flyers. We know how quickly that can turn into a really, really exciting and heated series between two teams. And then Toronto versus Montreal would be absolutely massive up in Canada, and a huge, hotly contested first round matchup. So those are the playoff matchups if the season ended today. I would be very, very happy, particularly with the Eastern Conference, if this is how things turned out. Obviously, this is just for fun. There's a long, long way to go still this season. We're not even to the halfway point yet. But, man, it's fun to look forward. It's fun to look at the playoffs and just the potential for what the playoffs can be. Because, I mean, there is absolutely nothing like the Stanley Cup playoffs in all of sports. It's my favorite thing in all of sports. Just night in and night out, you've got A-plus hockey. Every goal matters. Huge rivalries building between a lot of these teams. And very obviously heated matchups when certain teams face each other. There's just nothing like it. So I cannot wait for the playoffs, whatever the matchups are. But I'll tell you, if this is how things ended, if the season ended right now, these would be some pretty fun playoffs to watch, I think. So with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.